Welcome back to One Winning Pod. We are here to get ready for the Ravens' Week 2 matchup for the 2022 season. This will be the home opener against the Miami Dolphins, a team that the Ravens played on the road last year. And suffice to say, that game did not go as planned, and in a lot of ways was kind of the beginning of a culmination of just a ton of bad luck for the team that would ultimately result in not making it to the playoffs for that season. And yeah, I'm not going to lie, this is a game that I'm really excited to see if the Ravens took some lessons from what happened in that game and can apply them and have a better showing this Sunday. Chris and Alec, what are you guys' first takeaway looking at this matchup?
Yeah, it's funny you have it in the notes, Peter. I think the number one thing is cover zero. You got to have an answer. It was maybe a little bit overstated, I think, last year, of just how much the cover zero seemed to just completely flummox our offense. It was like the Lamar Jackson killer, just play cover zero, and like he's completely shut down. I think the Ravens need to be prepared for it. They got to have an answer for it. It's got to work on the execution, right? I think it was one of those. It was one of those like perfect moments of the scheme worked perfectly, and there was just nothing that they could do to kind of adjust to it, and that's why it was so dramatically just like effective. This time around, obviously the Ravens, they should not be surprised if the Dolphins are going to play a lot of that, and they should have more of an answer. So execution for me, especially on offense, I think is going to be the number one thing. I think a lot of narratives going into it are going to be around that. On the defensive side, I think continue to build off of week one. They had a pretty strong showing, and I think they can bring some of that next week as well.
Yeah, for me, this is we got a little bit of data points out of week one. How is it going to go into week two? Like, will we confirm more of it, or will there be more unknowns because we saw a different level of performance? And I do think this is a better team that is better suited to stress test some of the things that we're most concerned about this Ravens team. I think it may be one of the reasons why we lost against them, even though, obviously Thursday night game, the rest, there's a whole bunch of reasons being away that game could have went sideways, but they're coming home, the home opener. And I think, to me, the big thing, if we're not talking about cover zero, is this new explosive offense that they've put together. I mean, they had a lot of these pieces, and in fact, if you recall from that game last year, and I'm sure a lot of listeners do, like, they had a bunch of explosive plays that we couldn't tackle. They went, and 5-yard plays became 50. Now they have even better weapons to do that. So the question is, like, can we tackle? Can we not let those big plays happen? That's the other big question mark going into this game, that the Ravens have to prove that they're not that team this year.
Absolutely. And I think on that note, we can just dive right in and start talking about who some of these guys are. Tyree Kill is the big one. The Chiefs couldn't come up with a contract extension for him, so he played his hand. The Chiefs called the bluff, and they traded him to Miami. He's there now. Jalen Waddle is, he had not yet become Jalen Waddle by the time the Ravens were playing them. I know Marlon Humphrey said after the game that he was going to be one of the great ones, but it wasn't really until a couple weeks later that Waddle really took off. So in some ways, he's new this year. They got Chase Edmonds in free agency from the running back position, also Raheem Mostert, or maybe D. Mostert. If you're looking at NFL.com, they have him listed as D. Mostert, as Chris found out before this recording. So, yeah, and all this is under new head coach Mike McDaniel. He was the run game coordinator from 2017 to 2020 with the 49ers, and then offensive coordinator last season. He's now the head coach. He's implementing his scheme in Miami. So, even though Tua Tagovailoa will still be the quarterback back there, in a lot of ways, this offense is going to be pretty different from what the Ravens saw last year. And I think of all those guys that we listed, you got to start with Tyreek Hill as looking at how this defense is going to approach this offense. We saw last year against Kansas City, the Ravens were tired of getting beat by Hill. They really focused in that game of taking him away from the Chiefs and forcing them to use their other weapons to beat them. I'm not sure that that's the approach the Ravens will take this game because, again, you're talking about the same player, but he's in a different scheme. He's being used a little differently, at least from what we saw in the first game action from him in a Dolphins uniform in New England. So that'll be interesting to see right off the bat. Are they going to overemphasize Hill, or are they going to play a more balanced approach and just kind of see where the Dolphins are going to script these guys to go?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a good point. I think the matchup in 2021, I think we held Tyreek to 3 or 4 catches, I think, if I recall. Somebody might want to fact check me on that one.
Looking it up right now.
But yeah, it was definitely not much of a factor in that game, and I think that was one of the reasons for that success. And the other one just being, I think the Chiefs were a little bit off early in the season last year. Ravens got a little bit lucky, I think. But yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, in terms of the Week 1 matchup, Miami played New England Week 1. At least a lot in the first half. There was a lot of short passing game on both sides. I think the Patriots kind of went to it because of the aggressive defense that the Dolphins deploy, which we'll talk about later. But on the Dolphins side as well, I mean, there were a lot of short passes, not as many deep attempts to really open up the field until later in the game. But yeah, it's one of those things of I would expect more of that, but it's also completely reasonable, I think, for the Dolphins to be able to take more advantage of that, right? Tyreek's got the speed. We know he has that. I mean, he's been a complete thorn in our side for years. I mean, I still remember the play made, I don't know, was it 2018, the matchup, where Mahomes just threw that ball over Mosley and Waddle, and Tyreek just took it to the house. We don't want that to happen. It's going to be a big test for this new Ravens secondary.
3 catches for 14 yards last year for Hill against the Ravens.
Yep, that's what I was thinking, is we were able to quiet him down last year. Now, granted, Kelsey had a pretty big game, so it might be one of those things where Waddle has a big game because we focus on Hill. But I think that there's definitely a path for the Ravens to be able to defend these two guys and keep them quiet. It's a 2-prong approach, right? Is Peters going to be available, and where is he at recovery wise, or how Steven's going to play, and then also how's this pass rush going to rattle Tua and this offensive line? Because I could see us being able to really get a lot of pressure and not let these big plays develop. As long as we can keep these guys in front of us, the worst damage they'll be able to do is 15 yards, because we're not going to give them the time to unload a pass like that.
Exactly. And yeah, when you're talking about a quarterback like Tua, he's not a guy who's going to really be able to improvise much to kind of force those plays to happen, for lack of a better term. If you watch what happened against New England, it was a lot of the same what we've seen in the past with Tua. They just did a lot of quick drop back. Where's the read? Throw it to the guy to get the guy in space. He's not super athletic at this level compared to other talents at the quarterback position. I do think he's a good quarterback. It's just physically he's not as imposing as a lot of the guys that are starting in the league right now. It's just a fact. So, but again, like we're saying, if the Ravens have to keep the guys in front of them, like Alex saying, tackling is going to be paramount. It's kind of a lazy analysis, but if you tackle these guys, then they're not going to be able to make the big play. If you whiff, then you can have, some bad stuff happen. Like last year, Darnell Mooney had that huge play. That play stopped if you tackle. So we know that. I've seen plenty of people on Ravens Twitter already point that out. I'm sure the coaches know that. The players know that. But it's still, something they got to do to keep these yak monsters that the Dolphins have on offense in check.
Yeah, one thing that really makes me, excited for this game, and I think a lot of Ravens fans should be excited too. This actually kind of aligns with a question we had a listener actually tweet out to us today. Joe Brundell asked us about our thoughts on Mike Mcdonald's defensive scheme. For me, I think one thing that makes me feel a lot better about this matchup is just having all the safeties on the back end. I think in week 1, Marcus Williams and Chuck Clark, I thought they played incredible. Marcus Williams had a career day for him. I think, Peter, you talked about it last episode. I watched some more of his film. I think Jason from HuddleItUpFilms had a mashup that he put up a few days ago. And, he played great. Both those guys were just in great positions for a lot of plays. Both very solid tacklers. As far as all the guys in the secondary, I think Marcus and Clark are just really, really solid tacklers, are always in the right position. So if we're talking about, going up against these weapons from Miami, I think the big difference this year versus maybe years in the past where Wink could maybe be a little bit more willing to leave corners on an island and, be able to do things with safeties, but the safeties aren't really in positions to be able to kind of defend on the boundaries or kind of be like the last line of defense. I feel a lot better with what Mcdonald's doing because I feel like we have, one, we're more willing to put safeties deep. We're more willing to put two safeties deep. And, just the quality of players now that we have at the safety position, I think are much better in years past. So that makes me feel really good about this matchup, that we have some guys who can really, cover on the back end.
I also have the confidence of this newfound 4-man pressure rushes. I'm going to give a shout out to Jason from HuddleItUpFilms. He put a compilation together of all the rushes with 4 men, and that was awesome. We were seeing the pocket collapse, and we know that the Dolphins' offensive line is in shambles. Apparently more in shambles than me when I didn't get Rashad Bateman in the fantasy draft, which cracked me up when I saw that in the show notes earlier today. So if anyone knows, that means a lot of shambles. So yeah, I mean, I anticipate them having just as good of a pass rush this game, if not better. And I would be concerned if they don't get the pass rush in this game. Also, notably, Travis Jones is on the recovery path. I don't know if he'll be available this game. I feel like they have so much depth, they can wait another game. But it's great to see that he's getting healthier too. I can't wait to see how dominant these guys can be when everyone's healthy and ready.
Yeah, so I might have overstated how badly the offensive line is doing for Miami, but they had a little bit of some difficulties against New England where they just had a couple players go out with injuries at certain times, caused them to have to do reshuffling, put a lot of guys in situations that they really wouldn't want. And I was listening to a guy break down the all-22 of the Dolphins earlier today, and he said at one point there was a stretch of a few plays where the Dolphins only had 2 guys in the spot where, like, that's where they started the game at because they had to shuffle the line so much, bring in a couple backups. Now, most of those injuries that were suffered were the guys who were able to come back, and it looks like they'll be playing on Sunday. The one area to watch for the Dolphins is their right tackle situation. So that's Austin Jackson, I believe, and he went down in the game, and his backup George Little had to come in. And at one point, Little had to come out for a few plays as well. He also got hurt, but he finished the game. And now, Austin, he's practicing in a limited capacity, apparently, right now, even though he didn't return to the game on Sunday. But the Dolphins did sign Brandon Shell from their practice squad, who plays offensive tackle. So that's something to keep an eye out for. And also Taryn Armstead, who has had plenty of issues with injuries the past 5 seasons. He was the marquee signing of free agency last year, franchise left tackle, albeit at age 31. He suffered a toe injury during the game, played through it, did have a vet day off on Wednesday, but toe injuries for tackles, that can be something that even if he's out on the field could be bothersome if it's, more serious. So the Dolphins' offensive line is a little bit beat up going into this game. So, yeah, the 4-man pressure is something that the Ravens could have some more success with this week.
Now, one question we have to ask about this offense is the concerns you have around the running backs with Edmonds there. Looks like they're trying to get faster than they were last year. Are you concerned about Edmonds and their running attack, or is it really just a secondary part of the offense in comparison to the passing game?
I think with these guys, it goes back to the same thing with Hill and Waddle. If you can tackle them, it shouldn't be fine. But if the tackling's not sound, they could spring loose. And, both these guys have a ton of speed. So they are guys that could give this defense trouble if the tackling isn't fundamental. Now, from a statistical standpoint, the Patriots were able to keep Edmonds and Mostert at bay for the most part. But, again, going back to what the Dolphins fans who are dissecting the All-22 are saying, Edmonds had a great game on Sunday. He did everything that you want a running back to do. He hit the holes with a lot of decisiveness. It just mattered the fact that the Dolphins weren't really creating super large holes for him. He was excellent in pass protection for the Dolphins, and was good at route running. And another thing about this running back room, this running attack, we got a fullback battle here. We've got Alec Ingold versus Pat Ricard. The Dolphins signed Alec Ingold from the Raiders in the offseason. San Francisco, we obviously know they use a fullback up there with Kyle Juszczyk. Mike McDaniel came in here, and he's bringing the San Francisco philosophy to Miami. So they're going to use Ingold. They tried a wheel route with him early in the game. It did not work, but it just shows you they got a fullback, and they're going to try and use him. And even though that's what the Ravens do, it still throws you off a little bit, I'd imagine, to see that in a real game situation, because teams just aren't doing that outside of the Ravens and Niners. So yeah, the running attack is interesting. I think the Ravens will be able to bottle it similar to how they did Hall and Carter against the Jets. Maybe the Dolphins will have a little more success, but it is an area to keep an eye on that the Dolphins could move to if they're not having success with the passing attack.
Yeah, I'll say from my perspective, it's a little bit of a concern for me this week. I think the Ravens maybe let up a little bit more yards to particularly Michael Carter, I think week one, than they probably would have liked. And he's another one of those backs I would probably kind of consider to be somewhat similar to the other guys, of a little bit smaller, but a little bit more quick, and kind of hit the holes and be able to cut upfield real quick. And so if I'm the Ravens, I think that's one thing I would want to tighten up a little bit before this game. They could give them a little bit of trouble. I guess the Ravens were a little bit fortunate with the game against the Jets. Obviously they played very well, but there were some drives where even when the Jets did have some success, there were just negative plays that the Jets had to be able to stop the drives, right? Part of that could be luck. Part of that could be how the Ravens kind of were tightening up closer to the red zone. Either way, it's stuff you want to clean up. You want to execute better week to week. So for me, I think that would probably be a point of emphasis of, hey, we got to concern ourselves with their pass attack, but don't forget the running backs. There's a lot of talent there that could do some damage if we're not careful.
I guess just to wrap up the offensive conversation, I'm really curious to see how they deploy their tight ends. I know that Mike Gesicki was rumored to get traded, and they don't have a place for him in the offense. He didn't get many targets last week, whereas last year he was one of the main concerns that we had going against this offense as a fast pass catching tight end. So I'm not particularly worried about the tight end group. It sounds like that's no longer how they plan on executing so much in the passing game. And I don't think the guys that they have there are going to be so robust that I'm worried about them opening up holes that at a level any higher than any other team that we face.
Yeah, it's interesting. Gesicki isn't even listed as a starting tight end on the depth chart for the Dolphins. It's Durham Smythe, who only had one catch for 14 yards against the Patriots. He's really in there for blocking mainly. Gesicki had one catch for 1 yard. That being said, I did see a couple instances in rewatching the game where it did seem like they did have Gesicki lined up out wide, and he was running some flat routes. Nothing too creative, I would say. I don't know what they're going to do with him. I wouldn't completely write him off. The guy's too talented for them to not find a spot in this offense for him. In some ways, he's Mark Andrews light. He's a fast, big-bodied athlete who can catch the ball. If I'm the Dolphins, I'm trying to figure out some way that they can make use of this guy. But at the moment, yeah, I'm just not sure if there's an obvious spot for him with all these other playmakers that they have. So I'm curious with him. I could see them having some packages for him that they haven't, come out with yet. And maybe there's something that they would bring out against the Ravens, or maybe they wouldn't even bother. Because like we said, last year, if I'm not wrong, the Ravens shut him out. He didn't get any receptions. So we'll see what they do with that. But that is something I think to watch out for, that could be a wild card for the Dolphins. All right, so moving on to the defensive side of the ball, as we talked about at the start of the show, this is the side of the ball that really gave the Ravens struggle in the game last year. They were able to keep the Dolphins' offense in check enough that if the Ravens were able to do their, just have an average offensive game, they would have come away from that game with a victory. There's no question in my mind about that. That's how dominant the defense was against the Dolphins' offense. But yeah, the Dolphins were able to find something, mostly doing cover zero and some zone blitzes that really knocked the Ravens off their rhythm. They didn't have an answer for it that night. So you look back at what they did week 1 against the Patriots. In a lot of ways, it's pretty similar. Very aggressive look, a lot of disguised blitzes, definitely some cover zero in there. So I would expect us to see the same thing. I think the Dolphins are going to do the exact same game plan. I know Flores isn't there anymore, but his philosophy still seems to be in that building, in that organization. And the Ravens, they got no excuses this time. They've got to have a plan, and I think they will, but it'll be interesting to see what exactly that will be that they do to counterattack that.
I'm definitely curious to see how Linderbaum can match up against Raekwon Davis. Not known as a sack guy, second-round pick out of 2020, only has had a half sack into the 2021 campaign. But he's 6'7" and 330 pounds. So he's super long as a nose tackle. And I'm wondering how Linderbaum's going to be able to handle him. So that's a matchup that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. Since we know that they're going to be happy to blitz, Raekwon could be able to really occupy Linderbaum and maybe compromise the middle of the line.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think for me, one of the things I'm really excited about, we haven't really mentioned his name, but he's back at practice, J.K. Dobbins. If he plays at all this game, I'll say this, even if he doesn't play, I think the Ravens are probably better equipped, at least in the running game, to be able to do some damage to Miami that we couldn't do last year. But if Dobbins is in, that's even way better. One of the things at least I noticed with probably more so the first half of the game last week, the Dolphins and the Patriots, Dolphins struggled a little bit. As an aggressive defense, they're trying to get to the quarterback and they're disguising blitzes and things all around the line of scrimmage. But they have a big weakness on outside runs. I think the Patriots took advantage of that early on, and they had the personnel to be able to do that. If Dobbins is in there or Justice Hill is in there, that is if we can execute on those and get people out in front, that's a way to slow down those blitzes, is to attack the edges, make them come back, and play more into our favor. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it now. Obviously last year we had some guys, they were in there, but nobody with the speed of a Dobbins or a Hill. So yeah, for me, that's kind of the X factor this week is how do those guys perform? Is Dobbins, is he going to get any snaps this week? He's back to practice. I don't even know if I would put a percentage on whether he's going to play this week or not, but certainly Justice Hill will be active. So that's definitely something we could use.
I think that's a great point that you bring up. The Patriots did have some success rushing the football against the Dolphins. They just got down and just abandoned it. So that was just why they didn't put up bigger numbers than they did. But, respectable game from the running backs. Harris, 9 carries for 48 yards. Stevenson, 8 for 25. So, yeah, they had some success there. And Dobbins is certainly a back who could take advantage of that. He has better outside speed and moves than both those running backs. So I think that's definitely one way the Ravens could do it. Another wild card in this game for the Ravens, he didn't have a big impact in week 1, but in beating these blitzes, the Ravens could really make use of Demarcus Robinson in this game. Put him in one-on-one matchups with the corners or just get him out on slants or maybe even screens. This guy has speed that could really come in handy to beat an aggressive attack that the Dolphins are expected to deploy. I liked seeing that the Ravens tried to get him some catches against the Jets. He wasn't able to do too much, but at least getting some chemistry with Lamar. And, again, like I said when we were first talking about Demarcus Robinson's preseason game, I'm not expecting him to be a huge part of this offense, but there are certain matchups that he can be an X factor in. And this is one I think is a possibility. We could see the Ravens deploy a little more Demarcus Robinson in these situations.
Yeah, definitely. I think, this is a very good secondary they'll be going up against. And I'm definitely interested in seeing, will Duvernay kind of make a repeat performance as a trusted target for Lamar? Or will, like you said, Demarcus Robinson get the chances? Honestly, I'm really curious about the target distribution. We didn't pass too much the last game. We threw 4 targets to Likely. He didn't catch any of them. I think we only threw 3 targets to Bateman. He caught 2 of them. And Andrews had 5 catches. I don't know how many targets he had. But, we didn't pass too many times. And there's just so little opportunity for these players to get involved based on how much we spread the ball around. That's the curiosity. So part of me is even if we don't use Robinson, or if he doesn't get the targets, it doesn't mean that what he's doing on the field isn't contributing to getting the other guys open. So definitely something to keep an eye on, and I'm excited to have the all-22 view and be able to see it kind of live and see how they're trying to execute it for this particular game. Because, yeah, that's one of the things that might get lost just watching on the broadcast view as far as how the Ravens are manipulating the secondary. One question I have as well is I'm looking at their pass rushers. Obviously, they have Melvin Ingram now, but he hasn't had a heyday really since 2019 as far as the sack department goes, and has been bouncing around team to team. They also have Jerome Baker. He has been increasing his sacks the last couple of years. 2020 had 7. This year, or 2021, he had 5.5. Third-round talent out of OSU. I think these 2 guys I'm going to keep an eye on as well, because I'm not sure what's happening with our left tackle situation. Is Stanley going to be out there? Is it going to be McCary? And I'm wondering what the status of Falele is as well, just as far as his availability, right? I don't think it's ideal for us to go into the game with 2 tackles if Stanley's not available, right? That seems like a problem. That might be why Cleveland won't get reps. Because I imagine if we have an emergency tackle after those 2, it's Cleveland, and that's an emergency. So, yeah, definitely interested to see how this plays out. I'm praying that Stanley's able to play, and I'm honestly really hoping that Cleveland makes an appearance too, because I was not impressed with what Powers did last game.
Yeah, you wonder if Powers got the first nod simply because he has more years in the league than Cleveland. Also, Cleveland has had some injuries throughout preseason. Grasping at straws here because, like we said, Cleveland had a great preseason, and we know what Powers can do, and it's not anything that's really above replacement. So we'll see. I'm big fan of getting Cleveland in the game, as you see from the meme I put here in our notes, which is the Viking from the Snickers commercial from a decade ago, throwing the trash can. The Feast commercials, if you guys remember that. If you're too young for it, look it up. That Viking, man, that's Cleveland. Let's talk about this. Let's get this idea out to Snickers. They need to reboot that commercial and put Cleveland in the role of the Viking. I'm making it happen here. Everyone's rebooting the wrong stuff in Hollywood these days. And I know it's just a commercial, but gosh darn it, this is the reboot I want to see. Anyways, yeah, Alec, you bring up an excellent point with the left tackle situation, and I forgot to put it in the notes, probably because I'm really scared about it, and having to type that out in the notes that we might not have a Ronnie Stanley even at 50% against some of the pass rushers that the Dolphins can throw out there is a little terrifying. You saw a lot of people saw what the Dolphins did to Mac Jones in week 1, just that blitz right off the edge. Now, in fairness, Jones was just falling asleep back there. I don't know what the hell he was doing, and the Dolphins got an easy strip sack for a touchdown with that. But yeah, the left tackle situation is still very precarious. We've been talking about it since the offseason, and I don't really know what else to say. They're going to have some solution because, yeah, McCary and Powers there doesn't make you feel too comfortable there. So hopefully Stanley can come back. He's practicing. This is Wednesday when we're recording it. He practiced Wednesday last week as well. We're really going to have to keep an eye on what's going on Thursday and Friday and just hope at this point. That's all we can do.
I saw in the notes that maybe the reason we didn't play some of these recovering guys is because of the field that the Jets have. And actually, I had that thought as well when Harbaugh was talking ill of the field conditions when addressing the fact that people got injured in that game. So I'm wondering if our listeners, tweet at us or something. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about all that, because I'm starting to think that maybe, that was actually what was going on with some of these players, because you can't really tell me that Dobbins and Peters weren't ready to go based on some of the things they were doing in warmups. I mean, I feel like I said last week, they're probably as healthy now as they might be at the end of the season after a season of tread happens to them. So, yeah, I kind of think that maybe that was part of it.
I definitely agree with that. Yeah, the MetLife Stadium turf is pretty infamous after destroying the 2020 Niners. I mean, they had so many injuries that game that just completely derailed their season. We were fortunate to come out of it with two backup level players. I guess. I mean, Fuller, I guess technically would be a starter, but I mean, obviously James is only going to be there until Stanley gets back. But yeah, for sure. Really unfortunate about Fuller, man. Obviously, we were just talking about the left tackle situation. I think with James, it's also a pretty crappy situation. Sounds like he tore the same Achilles that he had torn back in 2019 or 2020, actually 21, I guess. Really unfortunate for him. I mean, hope he can bounce back, but I mean that's rough to be able to go through that twice. Fuller, though, I was really looking forward to kind of seeing more of him playing, and just crap luck too, man. I mean, I remember reading something about just his injury history is almost non-existent. He healthy the last 7 out of 8 seasons or something, and barely missed a game. And what the hell? He just goes down with an ACL. Man, just you hate to see it. Only good thing that I can kind of think of is just really love what I saw from Brandon Stevens week 1. I know we talked about it in the recap episode earlier this week, but I'm confident definitely in Stevens to be able to pick up some of the slack there. He showed a lot week 1.
Yeah, I think you're right about Fuller's durability. And again, just to show how crazy these injuries can be, I'm pretty sure that when the Ravens signed him, we talked about that as hey, yeah, durability. That's that's a good thing you can bring to this team with all these defensive guys coming off from injuries. And there you go. It's just a freak accident. It's just crazy how this can happen. The Ravens did make a signing to add some depth with Fuller done for the year now. TJ Carey was signed to the practice squad. I haven't heard about this guy, but apparently he's been around for a bit. He was a 7th-round pick of Oakland back in 2014 and has had a pretty solid career, given that 4 years in Oakland, then 2018 through 2019 with Cleveland, most recently with Indianapolis, 2020 through 2021. Looking at this guy, he seems solid. A guy who's played and can fill in if the Ravens so need it. Hopefully, with Armour Davis and Williams, he won't be needed. But there's an extra insurance guy there just in case. We know based on what happened last season, secondary depth. If you don't have enough of it, it can kill you. So again, hopefully this guy isn't needed. But in the case that he will be, I think the Ravens got someone who can at least do solid for them there. Jumping back from the Ravens secondary to the Dolphins secondary, this is another talented unit. So they got a talented front seven, and the secondary is good as well. Xavier Howard is the longest tenured member of this defense. Has been there since 2016. And then the safeties are pretty good too. You got Brandon Jones back there. Javon Holland, who made the interception on the tip from Howard in the first quarter against the Patriots. They call him the Snowman in Miami, apparently, because he wears the number 8, and that's a snowman. That's what I read online. He's the Snowman, second-year player. The Dolphins are expecting big things from him. And, yeah, this is another group that's going to be tough for the Ravens to go against.
Well, our Snowman's better, so I think he'll be throwing dimes against Mr. Snowman over there. Yeah, I mean, this is great. This is an excellent matchup for the receiving corps to have to go against and win their matchups and give Lamar someone to throw to. I think the biggest thing to remember with the cover 0 is that somebody should be open, right? Someone should be able to generate separation, and once they do, it could be the death of them. So if they're going to choose to come after us with numbers and try to fluster Lamar and all this stuff, it's on the wide receivers to get the separation so he can get it out the pocket and make them pay. So that's the big thing I'm looking for is, can we generate separation against these guys and really slow down their pass rush? Did you guys notice they have Justin Bethel on their team?
I did not.
Spy.
There it is.
So fans may remember from our draft analysis last year, Jalen Phillips, he found his way onto the Dolphins and had a pretty good rookie campaign with 8.5 sacks. So that's another pass rusher that we didn't talk about in the first segment about pass rushers that definitely could get after the quarterback, and is another fearful person to have on the other side when you're having a little bit of uncertainty around your offensive line. So be looking to see, I think it could dictate our running back choices, right? It could dictate us using a running back who's better in pass pro because we're going to have him stay back there to pass pro. So that's something to keep an eye on too, particularly with, Dobbins coming back, is how confident are they in his pass protection at this stage of his recovery, and will they not lean on him as much because of that, particularly with the blitzing nature of the Dolphins defense?
Yeah, that is a good point. I mean, because you've got him just coming back from injury. Do you really want to throw him out there in that tough of a situation? I don't think we really know what the Ravens are going to do with running back in this game. I was not expecting so much Kenyon Drake last game. I was expecting we were going to see more Davis. We hardly saw Davis at all. Hill got mixed up in there a little more than I thought he would. Yeah, I don't know. In some ways, I almost say, play Drake more in this game. We need someone there. He knows what to do. I don't think you want to put too much on Dobbins to start out, but we're going to have to mix him in as well to get the big plays like Chris was talking about. So that'll be interesting to watch for.
Yeah, for what it's worth. Drake's got some speed too. So, yeah, it's probably kind of good, actually, in hindsight, maybe to kind of play him a little bit week 1 to kind of get him up to game speed for week 2. Yeah, he could certainly be a guy. I could see how the Ravens would want to use him a little bit more. Either way, at the end of the day, I think they've definitely got to fix their running game. The performance week 1 was just not great at all. I can't think of a single run from the Ravens that day that was good. Maybe like that 8-yard scramble that Lamar had to be able to get a first down, but it's not.
He had to work for that too.
Yeah, it's not a run play. That was a broken pass play that he scrambled. Yeah,
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. And I was going to bring that up. So we need to see this offensive line gel. They didn't play together in the preseason. You have these people that are injured, like Stanley trying to come online. Even James, to an extent, with him kind of coming back from the injury. Linderbaum missed time due to the injury. We got to see these guys play better. But you know what? Honestly, I don't even know if it's the line's problem. I saw a lot of issues with our tight ends and their ability to block. I even saw Ricard miss blocks when I rewatched the film. So we got to see these guys clean it up, man. Because what you'll notice is it takes one player losing their assignment to destroy a whole run game. You got to have everyone executing. And when they do, you might get the yards. But if they don't, you definitely won't. So I don't think we have the talent, except for Lamar Jackson and maybe Dobbins when he gets fully healthy, to make something out of nothing. You got to block better than they're blocking. So that's what we're looking at. And I got to see them play better. I do anticipate they will get better over time. I am just curious how fast. I think it'd be overzealous to think it's going to be this game, particularly if you're adding a new piece with Stanley. And if you're not, with McCary, it's still new. You're not getting that glue and cohesion. So I'm going to be cautiously optimistic about this running game for a while. I still think once Dobbins gets out there, he's going to will his way into breaking one out. That's going to be a bold prediction until he has his first game action. But that's going to be on him. I'm not so sure if it's going to be the line consistently doing it for him.
Yeah, I think that's really the number one thing that we're talking about here as far as what are really the intangibles of this game. We're talking about how the Dolphins, unless they break a long play with one of these guys, they're a slow-paced offense. The Ravens, if they're able to make long, methodical drives in this game, and to do that, they're going to have to rush the football effectively, they can really win this game with ease. But if they're, doing quick drives and giving the Dolphins plenty of time to do what they can do, it's going to make the game a lot tougher for them. So, yeah, I think you bring up an excellent point there. It'll be interesting to see if Nick Boyle is back in the fold. He was inactive in week 1, obviously. There's questions about his health and effectiveness if he's able to play as well, along with just like Stanley. But he's at least a guy who we know has a high football IQ in that area in the run blocking, even if he's not exactly the same physical player that he was in the past. So, yeah, that in and of itself may end up being the difference in this game as to whether or not the Ravens can win this game. And even if they do win it big, is can they get this run game on track? Can they get the blocking in check? That's going to be key, and hopefully the Ravens were able to take some things away from the film against the Jets and have some plans in place for this game coming up on Sunday. With that, we're going to move into our bold predictions and score predictions. Anyone ready with their bold right this second?
Well, like I said, my overarching bold prediction is going to be this Dobbins revenge tour, but not using it again. I'm just having it overarching for when he's ready. It's a conditional bold prediction.
You're building up. It's like the MCU, right? You're just like, these all like self-contained bold predictions until they all come together.
That's one way to look at it. So here's what I'm going to go with. This has nothing to do with my investment in Mark Andrews and fantasy football. But, 5 catches for 52. It's kind of quiet, a little sleepy for the best tight end in the game. So I'm going to say that he breaks 100 yards and gets a touchdown.
I'll go with mine. I'm going to double down kind of what I mentioned earlier with, the Dolphins maybe having a weakness in terms of outside runs. I'll say that the Ravens' longest offensive pass play is a run. Now, I'm not going to specify what running back it is because it could be anybody. But
oh man, so you guys both went offense, so I probably have to go defense. Can't come up with a good one for defense, so I guess I'm just gonna go offense as well. And like I said, I think Demarcus Robinson is interesting here for the Ravens, and like Alex said, there's a lot of different ways the Ravens could use him. Not necessarily just from catching the ball, but as deception, trying to stretch the defense. But that being said, I think that he will get an opportunity for a deep ball here, and he gets a 50-plus yard reception touchdown. With that, we can jump into score predictions. And I know Alex said that he thought the spread was a little close. Man, this is a tough game to call, and I think that the Ravens, if they have a healthy offensive line, they can win this game easily, like they did against the Jets. This defense scares me a little more. This defensive scheme scares me more than the Jets. I think it's going to be a close game. I'll say that the Ravens win 17-13.
I definitely think the Lamar Jackson is not going to allow the Ravens to lose this game as we did last year. I think there's a good bit of pride here, I think, on the line, and we've seen the team bounce back from losses like this. I mean, obviously, I think the Titans game, the playoff game, was a good example. Although I will admit, actually, that kind of is contradictory because they did lose the next matchup in the regular season against the Titans, but they did finally win the next playoff game after that. The narrative is that you might be down, but you might not be down for long. I think I'm going to go again with the Ravens here. I'm going to say 27-20 Ravens.
All right, so I would say if we were looking at defensive bowl predictions, by the way, I think Owe is going to wake up. He's not going to be sleepy this game, and he's going to get a sack or two. Not that I think he was sleepy before, but
yeah,
he
wasn't a lot of coverage like you mentioned. I did notice that in the game rewatch.
Field conditions too, right? I think that it's like really sapped his speed. Yeah,
all good points. All right, so the spread, like you said, 3.5 points, over under 44.5. I'm going to say that this offense is anemic, and this defense is just going to prove once again that they're going back to the historic Ravens defense, the prideful tradition of excellence of Ravens defense. So this offense is going to get shut down. I think they're able to put together Again, 13 points, but the Ravens offense will be a higher flying affair for the home crowd, and they will put up 31 points, which is exactly 44 points. The under. Very exciting game coming up, guys. Not just the opener, but also the Ravens will be giving recognition to Jalen Ferguson and Tony Siragusa before the game. I do hope that there's footage of that and it's shared on their YouTube channel or Twitter or something for fans that aren't in attendance at the game. I definitely am looking forward to that aspect as well, commemorating the loss of life that came too soon for those two players in the offseason.
Well, I think with that, we can probably wrap up this episode. I'm really looking forward to this game on Sunday. I know Alec and I and correspondent K-Fish will be there for the opening day. It's going to be great. Looking forward to it. We had all this preseason to kind of get ready for our tailgates, as we've talked about. It's going to be a really good time. We'll be able to do our recap after the game, as always. We hope, for Ravens victory. In the meantime, if you guys ever want to give us a shout out or have any questions about any of the content that we covered in the episode, please reach out to us. We're on Twitter at OneWinningPod. You can also email us onewinningpod@gmail.com.
Check out the YouTube, guys. Lots of cool stuff going up there. Not only our bets, but also Peter's History Corner, which I don't know if he's willing to tease at the moment.
That's right. Well, I'll just give a hint that despite the fact that Tua does not throw many turnovers against anyone, really, the Ravens have had a lot of highlight turnovers against the Dolphins in the past. I'm not sure if we're going to see any this week, but that's what we're talking about in History Corner for this game, which I know Chris will be excited about.
Ed Reed. I know, I love that. I love those highlights.
All right, guys. Check it out. We'll see you later.